Hey everyone, Jen here again today, and today we're going to be making the Scrappy half square triangle quilt block. If you're here, you might have even caught us on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. This quilt block went viral on Monday, so there's going to be a lot of people watching how to construct it, and this pillow was part of that reel. So I'm going to be showing you how to make the quilt block. Just like my other videos on our quilt block, we're going to go through construction of the specific quilt block, and then you must have the knowledge of what to do with that quilt block. I did include in the download some layout ideas if you do want to make an entire quilt out of this quilt block. I also laid out pillow dimensions and some different layouts for those, how many blocks you would need for certain size pillows. If you want to see another video about how I constructed the pillow, I will link it right there from a previous block. It's a very simple process. So go ahead and grab your pattern and print off the quick tutorial, which is like your cut chart and those instructions. And let's get started. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about fabrics. So in the video, you see that I am using a jelly roll, which for most of these blocks, a jelly roll is going to work with, I'm pretty confident, all the sizes. For the two largest sizes, it's going to be tight. So you have to be really careful about how you place those strips. If you're cutting down your fabric from just yardage, I would give yourself more seam allowance. And I do note that in the PDF. So we are going to be using the 5x5 block. So a jelly roll will fit for that block. All of this is just scraps left over from the quilt and the pillows that I made, as well as this eyeball fabric, which I love. I'm obsessed with this print. This is not cut like the cut chart, and that's just because this is leftover for me. So just note that when we're going. So you're going to need 5 different pieces of fabric. And in the cut chart, I give you the lengths. You do not have to pre-cut your fabrics, especially if you're using a jelly roll. I do not pre-cut my fabrics when I'm doing this. I go ahead and tack them down and trim as I go. So whatever method works for you, totally fine. Okay, so I pre-prep my fabrics with, I do starch them and iron them before we put the block together. They will get ironed again once your whole project is put together. So go ahead and get your fabrics together and set those aside. And I like to lay mine out in order of how I'm going to use them just to keep them organized. So the stabilizer that I'm using is Tear Easy by Sulky. If you've watched any of the other quilt block videos, you'll notice this is the same stabilizer I use for all of the blocks in the hoop. So you'll want to invest in some lightweight tearaway, and this is the one that I prefer. So again, 5x7 hoop, tearaway stabilizer, go ahead and load it in your hoop, and then go ahead and put your hoop on your machine and run step 1, which is the full placement for your block. Okay, I went ahead and stitched step 1, which is very hard to see because this stabilizer is so thin, which is what you want. I even tried to put some fabric down to see if that would help, but you still can't see it. But so all of our strips are here, and then our triangle is down here. So for sizes 5" through 9" that is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strips of fabric, and then your triangle. For the 10 and 11" blocks, you will have 2 extra strips, and that's to make them more narrow so you can attempt to use a jelly roll. With the jelly roll, just as a note, this square here, because of the way we have to attach the fabric, you will not be able to use a jelly roll piece in that square or triangle rather. So you do want to make sure you have some yardage. You don't even need a lot, just a square for that specific triangle. Now for this size, the 5x5, you can use a jelly roll, but I believe once you get maybe 7 and up, you're not going to be able to do that for that corner. Also, The 5 the 5-inch to the yeah, the 5-inch to the 9-inch, they start at the top and work their way down. The 10 and 11 start from the bottom and work their way up. And that's because of how the hoop sits and where you can reach what was easier. So, again, 5 by 5 block size we are doing. So the first piece we're going to start with is the triangle at the bottom, and sorry, the triangle at the top. I'm already confusing myself. So the triangle at the top is going to be a flat lay down. There is no flip and fold for the first piece to go down. So you're going to go ahead and take your first piece of fabric, cover all of the placement stitchings of that top triangle, and then you're going to go ahead and run the next step to tack it into place. Okay, so our first piece is tacked into place, and you're going to go ahead and trim the two inner portion of the triangle. You want to leave the outside seam allowance. You can just leave that intact. You'll trim that at the end. Okay, so the next strip of fabric is the one right next to it, which I believe I labeled number 2 in the chart. So you're going to go ahead and take your next fabric, which is going to be this cute little Pomeranian, and you're going to place your fabric right side down, and you need to make sure, if it's directional fabric, which way you want the fabric to go. I mean, this is a diagonal and it's kind of scrappy, so does it really matter to me? No, but it might matter to you. So the Pomeranian, when I flip it, I want it to face this way. So you just need to make sure that you're placing your fabric the correct way. So it's going to stitch along here and you're going to flip it over. So again, this is how I want my fabric to look. I'm going to flip it over and line it up with the seam of the previous fabric. I'm going to go ahead and run the tack down line along the top. Okay, so our fabric is the initial tack down is done. You're going to go ahead and take your fabric and fold it over. Go ahead and finger press the seam here. If if it's more comfortable for you, you could tape this. I find that the fabric just folds over just fine, or I just hold it with a chopstick on the corner to hold it into place. The next step is going to stitch around the outside of that strip and tack it into place. So go ahead and fold your fabric over, secure, and run the next step. Okay, so I have my little Pomeranian in place. I'm going to go ahead and trim down here. You could also do that at the end, or you could also just line up your fabric along the edge and then you don't have to trim it all. I had to because I wanted the little dog in here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and trim down the inner fabric to about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to leave the outside in place. So then I'm going to take my next fabric, which is going to be the green diamond. I'm going to do the same process. This time, though, I'm going to line up the edge to the edge of these two fabrics so I don't have to trim. So I'm going to line up my next fabric along the edge of the other, go ahead and run my tack down stitch, and we will be back. All right, our fabric is tacked into place. Same process, we're going to fold it over, finger press into place. Again, tape here if necessary. You can see we give quite a bit of seam allowance. I forget the cut chart, I think is 2 inches, but again, I'm using a jelly roll, so I did not pre-cut those fabrics. And we have a good amount here. So, okay, so once it's folded over and you can tape or hold in place, go ahead and run your next step to complete the tack down. All right, so that strip is done. I'm going to go ahead and trim on the inner portion here. Just leave the outside. So now my next strip is going to go here, and I'm going to use the kitty cats, which was also a favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and line that up. My other fabrics. I'm going to go ahead and tack this into place, flip it over, and run the completion, and then I'll be back. All right, kitty cat's complete. Go ahead and trim off this excess here. The next fabric's going to be orange. Same process. Go ahead and line it up. I'm going to return it to the machine, run the tack down, do the flip, and complete the tack down. All right, same as before. I'm going to go ahead and trim here. You've noticed it's just the same process all the way down the strips. The only one that's flat is the first one. all the others and even the large triangle follow the same process. Okay, so our last fabric is the ghosty fabric, and this is going to follow the same path here. Now, with this corner fabric, in the cut chart, I put squares, and that is much easier to use for this piece. And it's just how we have to tack it into place. If you were doing traditional paper piecing, you could tack this a different way to use a smaller piece of fabric. But because it's in the hoop, it has to go where it is. So go ahead and place your last fabric and follow the process, and I will be right back. Okay, how cute is that? I love this fabric so much. So this one you don't have to trim as long as you lined up your fabric along the edge of the others. So you can see they're all lined up. It's pretty close to 1/4 of an inch, good enough for me. So it's the last piece of fabric, which is going to be your big triangle. In the cut chart, I tell you to use a square and then cut it at the diagonal. So you'll have enough for 2 blocks. That's just the easiest way to go. Again, this is just leftover, so it's a lot bigger than I really needed. So you're gonna go ahead and take this fabric right side down, line up the clean edge with your other fabrics. Same process, go ahead and run your tack down line here. You're going to flip it over and then complete your tack down. Okay, so stitching is complete. You're going to go ahead and remove your block from the hoop, and I'm going to flip it over, and you're going to remove the stabilizer from the outside of your block. You want to leave the stabilizer on the interior part of your block until you have whatever, if you're making a quilt or a pillow, once you have your blocks together, then you're going to go ahead and remove the stabilizer from the interior. Leaving it in helps keep your blocks straight, and it also makes it easier to attach them to one another. It's just like paper piecing if you've ever done that or seen videos. So you're going to go ahead and leave that in place. And then we are going to trim up our block. So this has no seam allowance in it. You're going to build in your seam allowance. So this block, finished block, is 5 inches. So you want a 5.5-inch block so you have a seam allowance. So on the back side, I find it easier just to take your ruler here and make sure you're using the 1/4-inch side. Line up your 1/4-inch line on top, directly on top of your stitching for the outside of the block. And you're going to go ahead and trim all the way around. Put that line right on top of the stitching and trim. This helps give you that perfect 1/4-inch seam. And then when you attach them together, you can sew right along that line on top of it when you are connecting your blocks together. So you'll see you have your stitching all along the outside. So when you connect your block, you can connect the points and then sew right along this line. So that's the block. I hope you enjoyed it. You can catch my reels on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, some other videos showing me putting the blocks together, doing some binding, all that good stuff. And if you do make the blocks, please share them with us on social media or join our Facebook group and share your pictures. We would love to see them. And I hope you enjoy.